Okay, here's the carbon cycle. This first question says, name two processes of the carbon cycle that add carbon to the atmosphere. Draw and label with an arrow. So I've put in here combustion. Notice my arrow. The arrow is starting at the fossil fuels in the power plant, and those fossil fuels are going into the atmosphere. Okay, that action word is combustion. The next one is respiration. The carbon starts off inside of an animal and it goes out of the animal and into the atmosphere as carbon dioxide. There are some other processes that I'm not going to cover them all, but another one might be, for example, deforestation. Okay, deforestation. The carbon is originally inside of the plant, and when it's burned, that carbon now goes into the atmosphere as carbon dioxide. So it was once in the biosphere, and now it is in the atmosphere. Name a process of the carbon cycle that removes carbon from the atmosphere. Draw and label with an arrow. Okay, so removes carbon from the atmosphere. So that means that the carbon started off in the atmosphere and it's being absorbed into, for example, a plant through the process of photosynthesis. So it went from carbon in the air to carbon now in the tree. Another process that removes carbon is diffusion. This is where carbon dioxide from the air now goes into a body of water through this process of diffusion. It's like the carbon is getting absorbed into the water. What is the relationship between carbon dioxide levels and global temperatures? Okay, this kind of brings back our unit on climate change. The answer is, as carbon dioxide increases, global temperatures increase. This is because CO2 is a greenhouse gas. If you remember, greenhouse gases absorb heat from the sun. And so the more carbon that's in the atmosphere as carbon dioxide, the more the temperatures are going to rise because it's absorbing that heat rather than it just getting reflected back out into space. What is the relationship between carbon dioxide levels and global temperatures? Here we want to circle the best answers. As carbon dioxide levels increase, global temperatures will increase, just like the previous question. It says draw a line on the graph showing the relationship. So here on my graph, as carbon dioxide increases, global temperatures are also going to increase. So my line is going to have an increasing trend to it. What spheres are involved in the carbon cycle? Well, we kind of covered this earlier in the review. All the spheres are going to be involved in the carbon cycle. Give you a couple examples here. In the geosphere, fossil fuels like oil and coal, natural gas, those are found in the ground. In the hydrosphere, we have carbonic acid. That's when carbon dioxide gets absorbed into the water and it creates a weak acid called carbonic acid. Biosphere, carbon is in all living things. So plants and animals all contain carbon. We're carbon-based life forms. And in the atmosphere, carbon dioxide is one of the gases that is in the atmosphere. Okay, name a process that takes carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. The example that I used was photosynthesis. In this process, carbon begins in the atmosphere and it ends in the plant. So the carbon goes into the plant, and the plant is going to take that carbon dioxide and it's going to use it to make sugar. So it helps the plant, and it also helps the air by taking that carbon dioxide out of the air. Okay, over the last 800,000 years, carbon dioxide levels have went up and down. Over the last 200 years, they have risen dramatically. What is causing this trend? One of the biggest causes would be an increase in the combustion of fossil fuels. they release CO2 into the atmosphere. And if you remember, CO2 is a greenhouse gas. Greenhouse gases cause an increase in temperature. Over the last 200 years, during the Industrial Revolution, okay, we've seen electricity, we've seen cars, we've seen plastics and things that use fossil fuels to make them. And while we do this, it just takes carbon out of the ground and puts it in the atmosphere. And that causes that increase in temperature. Which carbon cycle process do humans have the greatest impact on? That would be combustion, this process here of burning fossil fuels and putting carbon into the atmosphere. Give two examples of what humans would do within that process. A couple of things would be like driving cars. We're emitting carbon into the atmosphere. And also using electricity. That's one we don't really realize that we're indirectly burning fossil fuels. Every time we turn on a light, every time we charge an iPad, all that stuff is using electricity, which somewhere is burning fossil fuels to give us that electricity.